Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the previous lessons, we were taking Kitab al-Salah. We began Kitab al-Salah speaking about some of the conditions that come before the Salah. We spoke about the timings of the Salah. We then started speaking about the Salah itself. And we broke it down into a few different portions just because the Salah itself is quite long. We mentioned how a person starts off the Salah. We mentioned what a person recites while they're still standing. We spoke about the ruku' or the bowing. And we spoke about a person getting up from ruku'. Correct?
Correct.
And that's where we stopped. Thereafter, we move on to sujood, the prostration. So, again, bearing in mind that we're learning the Hanafi madhab at the moment. So a person says, Allahu Akbar, and he prostrates. How does a person make this sujood? When he's going down, he goes with his knees first. This is the Hanafi madhab, and it's also a majority opinion. So first is the takbir, and then number two is you go with the knees first. Okay? Thereafter, you put the hands. Okay? So I'll just put a K there for knee. And thereafter, the hands. And thereafter, you've got the face. The face consists of the forehead and the nose. And notice how we're speaking about the rule here. Notice how we're speaking about the rule here. So we're not talking about if a person makes sajda and his nose is not touching the ground or his forehead is not touching the ground. That will come later. Those are all masail, which are exceptions to the rule. Here we're speaking about what a person is encouraged and required to do. So knees onto the ground first, followed by the hands onto the ground, followed by the face. And we said the face consists of both the forehead as well as the nose. And a person makes sajda like that. So let me draw here, even though it won't be that good. But just imagine this is a person's feet here. And this is the bottom part of the leg. And this is the knee. Okay, and this is the person's back, and they are. That's the face, okay? Okay, so this person is making sujood. So we said that he comes with the knees first, thereafter the hands. You got the hands, and thereafter the face. Now, they give you a few pieces of detail and a few pieces of information. Number one is these toes should be facing the Qibla. So how would they be facing the Qibla? It would mean a person's foot would be like this literally as he is in sajda. So the toes would be at an angle or slightly bent, number one. Number two is, this is for the men, according to Hanafi madhab as well as the others. There should be space between the stomach and the thighs. Okay, this is for the men. So if there's space between the stomach and the thighs, you'll find that the back and the bottom would be higher. Okay, this they say is for the men. Number three is when it comes to the arms themselves, the whole arm, there should be space. So as long as you're not disturbing anybody behind you, you put it out such that if a person had to see, and let's say you're wearing like an ihram or another garment, there would be separation, okay, between the arm as well as the side of the chest. Okay, so you don't make sajda squashed like this for the men, the Hanafi madhab. And as for the face will come between the hands. So it's not that you put your hands forward and your face before it, or not that you put your hands behind and the face in front. No, in line. So as you're on the ground. So a person says, while he's standing up from ruku, then says Allahu Akbar. He goes knees first, and then hands, and then face. And as we mentioned, that he should be keeping the space between the stomach and the knees. This for the men as well as the uh, arm and the side of the chest. And his hands, the fingertips or the fingers should also be facing towards Qibla as well as the toes. And then he says, Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. Subhana Rabbiyal A'la 3 times. And this is the least amount of sunnah. Okay, so that's the dhikr. Subhana Rabbiyal A'la. Thereafter, he says Allahu Akbar because his sajda is finished and he comes into the sitting position. Whilst he's in the sitting position, he waits a moment. There's some dua which are mentioned. However, he can read whatever dua he wants to read. But in the books, they mention that he waits for a moment. That's the bare minimum. And then he returns for the second sajda. He returns for the second sajda. After that, he gets up. So what we've taken up to here is 1 unit or 1 rak'ah. Okay, from the very beginning, the last 4 or 5 lessons. Standing, prostration, getting up from standing, bowing, getting up from bowing or ruku, going into sujood, sitting back up, going back to the second sajda, and then going all the way up to the standing position. Okay, that's the first rak'ah. Then we move on now to the second rak'ah. The second rak'ah, same as the first rak'ah, except that there's just a few things to remember, a few differences. The first difference is in the second rak'ah that he's gotten up, there is no dua ul istiftah. So a person does not recite again, Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdika wa tabaraka asmuka wa ta'ala jadduka wa la ilaha ghayr. That dua is for the first rak'ah only. Number 2, in the Hanafi madhab, he doesn't raise his hands, okay? No raising of the hands. Number 3, he doesn't say A'udhu billahi minash shaitan rajim again, according to the Hanafi madhab. So this is what it is to remember. Those are the only differences. Okay? Bearing in mind again that there's no 1 rak'ah in the Hanafi madhab. The least amount will be 2. So a person would have started their salah, read the first rak'ah, and then they would have gotten up to the second rak'ah. The second rak'ah is the same as the first rak'ah, except for the few exceptions that we mentioned. Then, after he's finished the second prostration of the second rak'ah, he comes to a sitting position. Okay? He comes to a sitting position. Sitting. Now, if it's like Fajr, for example, or Sunnah, where it's only 2 units of prayer, this sitting position is the first sitting because he's sitting for the first time, but it's also the last sitting at the same time. So it would be considered the sitting where he makes salam. There's some units of prayer which may be 3, such as witr, or 4, such as Dhuhr, Asr, or Isha. Also, this 3 could be Maghrib. So they call this the first sitting, regardless of. When he's in this position, there's certain du'as that he needs to recite because the du'a is quite long and we'll go through the meanings inshallah after the salah. We'll leave it for the next lesson. So up to here, you know the etiquette and the methodology of performing the salah in the Hanafi madhab. What you must remember is some ai who've mentioned, some say al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah mentions that there's so many different masail and khilafat when it comes to the salah. Khilafat meaning difference of opinion. Some have counted more than 1,000 differences in opinion at every position. And just imagine, when someone's starting the salah, where does he raise his hands, up to here or there or there? There's difference of opinion. After he ties, when he needs to tie his hand, how does he tie his hand? Like this or like this or like this? It's difference of opinion. When it comes to dua ul istiftah, what does he read? Again, difference of opinion. When it comes to ta'awudh and basmala. Does he recite basmala loudly or not? Difference of opinion. Is Fatiha a rukn of salah or not? Difference of opinion. So some scholars have counted even more than 1,000 different masail of khilaf where the scholars have differed. So we try our best, and what's important to mention is these are masail where there's ijtihad. But nobody said, for example, Salatul Maghrib is 2 raka'ah, or Salatul Asr is 7 raka'ah. Nobody ever said that. So the principle of the Salah, according to everyone, especially the Fard Salah, remains the same. As for certain masail in ijtihad, they differ. And the more you learn in the different madhahib, you find that the madhahib or the madhab in and of itself has differences in opinion. Like this masala I didn't go into, but it's mentioned when a person is making sujood, and let's say they don't touch the nose on the ground, or they don't touch the forehead, is their sujood counted or not? Let's say they only put half, so one hand and a little bit of the forehead and a little bit of the nose and one foot and the other is in the air. Is their sujood counted or not? Again, long difference of opinion. So every little movement and recitation in salah, there's some mas'ala generally where somebody has differed. So for somebody to claim the mas'ala of ijtihad, to say that this is most definitely the way Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam read salah, bearing in mind that there's so many different ahadith, we would say that this is your ijtihad when it comes to putting the salah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam in order. We're not talking about the principle of salah. We're talking about certain adiyah, certain adhkar, certain methodology, etc. So inshallah we'll stop there, and then next lesson we'll take the tashahhud. Then you carry on with the salah, which is more than 2 rak'ah. And inshallah, after that, they move on to, they have a few more masail in salah. Then they move on to, I think it's imamah, where a person is in